we know the air raid is there and they can throw it to a million people and make you look really bad in an air raid, but they can't win a game because they have zero defense and they become predictable. What do you see with Will Rogers and Mike Leach in year two? Do you think Mike Leach has actually added a 13th and 14th play into his playbook, or is he still sticking with that same 12 that he's had, like the water boy, his special notebook? He just has 12 plays and that's it.
Right. Yeah, look, Max, I think the air raid is what it is, man. I think it's a really explosive scheme. It's going, they're going to beat somebody this year they have no business beating. And that's just the fact of the matter. Every air raid team, my man Leach and company did that at Hal Mummy and them guys at Kentucky back in my day with Tim Couch. And there's that air raid is a fun game to play. It's fun to watch. They're going to beat at least one team they shouldn't beat. But the other side of that coin is, because of the way in which they have just total disregard for the clock, total disregard for the importance of turnovers and time of possession and things of that, protecting the quarterback, things of that nature. They're going to have a really, really hard time competing in this conference. Look, he's when you talk about Will Rogers, I mean, he's executed the game plan for Mike Leach really well in terms of getting the football out, distributing it accurately, getting it out of the quarterback's hands. All the passes that are ultimately runs, he's done a really, really good job of. And I personally think that the reason why you don't see them have the ability to stretch the field and make the big plays that you typically see in the air raid offense is because of the conference they're playing in. And so, unfortunately for Mississippi State, I don't think there is a whole lot of answers in terms of being able to compete in this conference. They're going to have a nice highlight reel. They're going to put up some big numbers, like you said. But ultimately, that style of ball, Max, when you got to run the SEC gauntlet, it's just too much.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that's kind of one of the things that we see, right? I mean, why the air raid works in the Big 12 and it doesn't work in the SEC, why it doesn't transfer is, like you said, time of possession. In the SEC, when you have big physical linemen leaning on you all the time and your offense is trying to get the ball down the field as fast as possible, you put that defense in trouble. And that's where time of possession helps give a breath. It helps give the tempo, right? I call the offensive line the drummers, right? They keep the cadence for the rest of the team. They keep the pace for the team. And you just constantly put them out there time after time after time. Yeah, we're scoring 45 points, but our defense, because they're dead, because we've gone through 4 deep on the defense, we are giving up 55. And I think that's kind of one of the things that you would think Mike Leach would finally get over. But yeah, the SEC is a different. You can't translate air raid into SEC. You can't translate it into Big Ten football because it's just the defenses are just that good and the opposing offensive lines.
Well, think about the position that you played, Max. I mean, the air raid, and everybody does it different, but the air raid, they believe in spreading out, like big wide splits and spreading out, literally spreading the defense out from inside out all the way to the sideline, right? We're going to spread it. We're going to use the whole field from sideline to sideline. And so the offensive lineman splits are bigger. And so think about it. I mean, there's nobody better to talk about that than you. It don't matter how talented you are. If in this league against Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, I mean, I'm going to give you more. Instead of Max Starks having to block an All-American in a phone booth, I'm going to spread it out and ask you to block him in a shipping container, right? I mean, obviously, you're giving some of the best defensive linemen in college football. You're giving them 7-8 yards to work on an offensive lineman instead of 4. And I mean, that right there in itself doesn't make any sense. Mississippi State's offensive line. And by the way, and then line up and snap the ball 80 times against those guys and see if you can have any success. I just don't see how it translates to consistently being competitive in this conference. I just don't see how, and unless Alabama or LSU or Georgia or Florida, unless they decide to try it one day, because they don't have to play themselves, I don't see how it translates to competing in this conference.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that's one of the main turnoffs that got me in high school when I was being recruited by some of the Big 12 teams. Texas Tech, I mean, infamously, right? They're synonymous with air raid. Over the last probably 15 years, you look at it, you're just like, oh my God. I mean, when you see those 6-foot splits, you're just like, no, thank you. No, no. Richard Seymour, Marcus Stroud, John Henderson, Albert Haynesworth. You're not giving them those type of holes because there's nothing you could do at that point except lay down on the train tracks.